big brown gadfly, where we give a hard time to people who need to be given a hard time, just like Socrates' horse. I have the inestimable, irreplaceable Rachel Alexander back from her long hiatus from talking to me. She's been involved in lots of adventures, and she has been like a busy bee studying the Supreme Court, because Rachel is an attorney. She had a lot of experience with election law in Arizona, and people are asking themselves, what drug did they put in the water there on Capitol Hill with these Supreme Court justices? What is going on? We spent all of this time with Amy Coney Barrett as if she was going to save us all from evil incarnate, right? We thought that Brett Kavanaugh was worth all of this stomach ache and all of this acid heartburn that we got during his whole confirmation hearing. Gorsuch, Roberts, tell us. Let's start with the most obvious one. Why did they not take any of the cases about election fraud except for the case that helps the Democrats in Arizona? Can you just, what the heck happened?
Well, what I think is going on, the difference being between, the oral arguments they just heard in Brnovich versus the DNC, and my close personal friend is Mark Brnovich, the Arizona Attorney General. So I wrote an article about his oral arguments a couple days ago. And basically what I think is happening there is that the Supreme Court does not want to expand things any further than they've already gone when it comes to changing election laws. I think they are aiming at the status quo. So when you got all these election lawsuits that happen, after the election, and the Supreme Court wouldn't have anything to do with them, that's because the Supreme Court didn't want to rock the boat. It wanted to leave everything the same. And so the reason why it is actually hearing this new, it's actually a low lawsuit, but it's not really applicable to the immediate election fraud that most people were claiming. This one going on with Brnovich and the DNC, that lawsuit would further expand and change things if they were to get somewhere. So if the DNC was able to get these Arizona election integrity laws struck down, that would change the status quo. And the Supreme Court, from all signs that I've seen, I don't just think the Supreme Court is going to let them do it. It's going to allow them to keep those state laws in place.
So even the one case that they agreed to hear, this is probably not going to go anywhere.
Correct. All signals are showing it's dead in the water.
Okay. All right. Now, what are we to take from the fact, let's just break this down. There were a bunch of cases that were grouped together from Pennsylvania, and they didn't comment. They just said it's moot. Now, that is the argument that we predicted they were going to say. They were just going to say, whatever, it's like you win some, you lose some, like whatever, who cares?
And they could have expedited it. And then it wouldn't have been moot, if they had heard it a few weeks ago.
Right. And then, okay, so those ones were moot. The other ones were just, we're not going to tell you. We're going to be like Mean Girls or something. They're just, well, we're just not going to talk to you. We don't like you, so we're not going to take your case. It's denied. I mean, you're the expert. How can they do this? To me, it just seems like such a gross violation of their obligation to the public. Or am I wrong? What's going on? Are they just crazy?
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. And the reason they do it is because they can get away with it. Enough people don't understand the law. You understand the law better than almost any attorney I have ever met. In fact, better than me sometimes. So you get what's going on, that they can just make up these excuses and they can just say, okay, that's moot. Okay, there was a technicality here. And they never tell you, oh, that technicality could have been overruled by this interest. We have this interest that weighs more, but they don't tell you that because they don't want the public knowing that. They want to just continue to have this ability to throw out cases on whatever thing suits their fancy that they think is going to work.
Well, it seems to me that they are making arbitrary decisions. They're just flying by the seat of their pants, making it up as they go along. I get the feeling like they just don't like the party that put them in power. They just don't like Republicans. They don't like Trump, even the ones that were appointed by Trump. They seem to have a deep-seated favoritism, with the exception of Alito and Thomas. That's it. I mean, we're down to just Alito and Thomas.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's it. The rest of them all are awful. They just seem as though they're just going to side with the pro-Biden side because it's Biden. They just don't want to be tainted by Trump. Is it just the reality? This is what it seems to me. When there was the debate about the election fraud, everybody was saying, well, all of these judges that Trump appointed have decided that there's no evidence. And I've realized Trump appointed them, but it's not like he tutored them for their whole career. He had to choose from the judges that were in the system already, right? Yeah. And all the judges that are in the system are basically either John Roberts Republicans or they're liberal Democrats. It's over, right? We don't have any pipeline into the courts. Is that fair to say? Or
absolutely, it is very difficult to get to the level of, say, a circuit court of appeals judge if you are a principled conservative. They will crucify you. They will destroy you. They will stop you from going any further. I mean, you have to have just such an unblemished history of never doing anything that's conservative to get that far. So they don't. So now we're just stuck with a bunch of rhinos to choose from for the Supreme Court. That's exactly what is happening, and we're seeing it play out. And you know, these ones who have betrayed Trump, you know, I know you and I have talked about this before. They're doing it because they don't want to go down being known as, you know, the left has made Trump look out to be so awful, and they don't want to be tarnished with that. And I get that, because, you know, when the left came after me in the legal field, I got sick and tired of being blamed for everything my ex-boss, the politician, did. It doesn't mean that he wasn't right, because I believe he was right. But I got sick and tired of having to defend him on every little tiny nuance that he did. That has followed me around for years. And I spend so much time talking about it. That's how people identify me. And I'm sick of it. And they don't want to go down in history as defending Trump at every little cocktail party they go to for the rest of their lives.
They're basically shallow, self-interested people like everyone else who got to a position of power. It seems like that's what we have to choose from in all these institutions. Were you shocked when Sidney Powell's cases got bounced back? I got the impression that she really thought that she was going to get a hearing at the Supreme Court, and they gave her nothing.
Yeah, I wasn't totally shocked, but it just surprised me that they actually had scheduled her as if they were going to consider it. I'm surprised they even went that far, but I think they weigh everything and they calculate it very carefully. So they're like, okay, well, we'll throw her one bone before we just throw her to the wolves. And so it was all a weighing process. And yeah, her lawsuits were never going to get anywhere because it's over with. So these decisions are easy for them to make now. Okay.
All right. I mean, I wish I could mine you for more insights, but it just seems like a straightforward yes or no answer. Yes, SCOTUS has gone crazy. They're nuts. So let's move on to some other things. I'm going to be in Austin next week lobbying the Texas state legislators. Now, this is interesting. Texas is the leader in lots of things. Like our attorney general took the lead in challenging the election. Our governor took the lead in this mask mandate. Our legislators are not taking the lead on anything. They're Republican-controlled state legislator. They're trailing behind and working with mass resistance. I had come up with this list of 16 fabulous legislative priorities. Me and Tracy Shannon together, the two of us, we decided these are all the things that we should look into. Everybody said, no, there's no way. No Republican state legislator is even going to look at that in Texas. It's not going to happen. Just don't waste your time. We're only going to focus on these 8 specific priorities. And then lo and behold, a lot of the things on our list are happening in other states. They're happening in other parts of the world. There are governors issuing executive orders. So things like trying to attack the cancel culture by big tech, that's being done in Florida. Attacking the accreditation system and the educational problems, that's being done in various places. Trying to ban drag queen story hour, that's happening in various other states. Trying to bring penalties, make people liable for bad counseling, all of that stuff. It's happening in other states, but it's not happening in Texas. The one thing that I'm curious of in light of what happened with the Supreme Court is we were really hoping that somebody would take up the case of nullification. And that has come up among different circles in Texas. I don't know how good of a chance it has, but does this not seem like the ripest environment we've ever seen for nullification? For Texas to basically say, look, the Supreme Court has said on paper that they don't have standing in interstate affairs. So let's just nullify decisions that we don't like from the Supreme Court. We don't have to listen to them if they're not going to listen to us. I know that, of course, everyone's going to challenge that, but doesn't this seem like this is the time for us to revisit the issue of nullification? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. And there hasn't really been a good time in the past. I mean, that movement has gotten no momentum. And so this is probably the best they're going to get. I mean, there's a lot of pushback because you've got all these, educated lawyers on the left, pushing back against it and just saying, this is unconstitutional and da, 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 da. Well, no, it's not unconstitutional. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't do it. So,
Right.
yeah, and I think there will be some states that take the lead. And it sounds like, probably Texas might not be one of the ones. But I always thought if anyone was going to secede, it would be Texas.
Well, we don't want to say secession just yet, but it starts with nullification. These executive orders on immigration, on gun control, on the Equality Act, on fossil fuels and climate change. I think that a lot of these things, we need states to start issuing resolutions from the state legislature and orders from the governors to say nullification. If you're not going to abide by the Constitution, nothing binds us to obey a lot of these commands. Now, that's one issue. Let me ask you, Trump gave a speech at CPAC. Did you see the speech?
I saw a lot of it, yes.
Okay. I'll be honest with you, and I know I have lost a lot of support from people because of my views on this. I supported Trump all the way until the end. But that's the whole point. There was an end. He got on the helicopter, he gave up, and he left. I supported him all the way. I would have supported him all the way as far as he wanted to go. I don't want to go through this again. What do you think? Do you want Trump to be the center of attention, the nominee for 2024? Because right now, for better or worse, the Democrats are in control. They're messing up. They're doing a terrible job. I want all of our attention to be on how bad they are, so we make the case for all these people in these races for 2022. Every time that we get stuck debating about Trump, I feel like we go backward. What do you think? Do you think that is the way forward for the party, is to have Trump the center of attention again?
I see your point, and I find it fairly compelling because, like you, I absolutely love Trump. He got so much done. But if we can find somebody else who can get as much done, who doesn't bring the controversial aspects, so they stop focusing on his tweets 24/7. Like, I actually think Donald Trump Jr. would be a really good choice because he is absolutely brilliant, and his tweets are just so sarcastic and so biting, but they don't go over the line as much as his dad's tweets do. He's much more of a strategic thinker. And that would be the ultimate, F you to the left to nominate Donald Trump Jr. And so I think that, there is a way we could do this. I mean, we can still love Donald Trump, but he doesn't have to be the next, president again.
Yeah, well, one of the big things that's hard is when Donald Trump was in office, I supported him and had to defend him. And a lot of times the things that I would bring up to defend him are things that now I don't think on a second round I can defend him based on the idea that he's going to appoint fantastic judges. I mean, that's the topic of the night. Okay. That argument I feel like is dead in the water. He also collected all of these people around him who are just terrible on the social issues, people who support the trans in the military, people who want to export our pro-gay politics and our dictates about pronouns to Africa and to hold them hostage with aid. They support the Equality Act. We're talking about the Scott Presslers, the Brandon Strakas, the Rick Grinnells, this endless litany of people where we were told again and again and again, if we just soften up on the social issues, somehow at the end of a rainbow, there's this pot of gold and all of these little libertarian elves are going to jump out in the millions. And that's going to make up for everything. We kept on hearing that libertarianism was the direction of the future. And I don't think I can defend that on the second round. I want Christian conservatives who are pro-life, who are pro-family, to have a voice. And I don't want them to be told again and again and again that they're what can be disposable. Because in my mind, it is always about the economy, but at the same time, look at what happened in 2020. We started 2020 with a super strong economy. God had other plans for us. We got COVID, we had the economic meltdown and stuff. And so it can't just be about economic conservatism. And I don't know. I don't know if Trump coming back means that that all of those people who got very entitled. I mean, when this debate broke out between Lauren Witzke and between Rick Grinnell, I don't know if you followed this. Did you see this?
Not that one.
They got into a huge debate about the whole issue of supporting the trans in the Republican Party. During that debate, I really felt like a lot of the libertarians are getting very entitled. Like they feel like they can just go up there, call us bigots, and say, well, we're the future of the party, not you. And I just want to say, look, sweetheart, actually, we were the majority of the party the whole time. We put up with you because we wanted Trump to win and Trump liked you guys. But I don't think I can do that on a second round. Where do you see the future of the social conservatives in the party going forward? And I've always thought of you as a social conservative, even though you're a little bit libertarian, right?
I used to be a registered libertarian in the 1996 back then, but I just they on the social issues I couldn't take it anymore. But right. I'm pretty socially conservative. I mean, it'd be nice to be more libertarian on economic issues. So I'm still pretty libertarian, but on the social issues, no. And I think what the social conservatives need to do in order to come back is they need a leader who is full of charisma, because people vote based on charisma. That's how you decide who's going to become the next Republican nominee. It's based on charisma. It might be based on looks as well. I mean, so the problem is a lot of these people who have come forward trying to represent the social conservatives have no personality. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there are some people out there at the top of the party who are the social conservatives who just ruin it. And I think that's where we need to make the change.
Well, and I feel like they always get stuck in these mental ruts and they keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, even though it doesn't work. So just between you and me, if I had to choose between making it all about the legal redefinition of marriage or making it about the abuse that goes on in the LGBT community and trying to address that, making sure that people had counseling, even if that meant that they were going to be counseled away from homosexual activity. These meaty issues that affect people in their personal lives and that people can relate to, I would have gone towards those specific things, the epidemiology, the mental health issues, all those kinds of things. But it seems like the social conservatives in our party, they wanted to make it all about the redefinition of marriage, and then they wanted to make it about religious liberty and whether an old lady in Washington has to make a cake for a lesbian wedding, etc. They focused on those things. I feel like this is I've talked to you about this before. This is a repeated problem with our side. So in Texas, they went to all this effort to protect Chick-fil-A, to pass this Chick-fil-A bill. I mean, they cleared out the legislative priorities to just say, okay, our religious liberty effort is going to be to make a law protecting Chick-fil-A's ability to get into airports. And then after all was said and done, it turns out that Chick-fil-A was also discriminating against pro-family groups. And they were also cutting off funds to groups that were deemed anti-gay. And they were using the same list of blacklisted organizations that everybody else was using. That seems like the recurring problem that we have. It would be good if we had people who were bold, who could give a strong face, who could compete with the Brandon Strakas and the Scott Presslers and all these like cute and cuddly gay Republicans that are always at the forefront. It would be good if we could find that. But I don't know if we were to get Trump again for another term, how do we get him without getting all of this baggage, these layers of stuff, these compromises that I made for 4 years in good faith, and now I'm not sure whether I can make them again if it were another 4 years. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that one's going to be tough because I think a lot of people have decided that the Republican Party has given up on a lot of those types of social issues. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to turn Trump around. I mean, I used to work for as you know, a very Christian conservative organization. And I didn't hear them talking about, oh, we need to turn Trump around on those issues. I mean, you see what they do to, Christians who work for them. I mean, all these Christian conservative organizations are just kicking people out if you try to, stand up on one of those issues. So
yeah, I know.
I don't see things changing if Trump gets back into office in 2024.
Yeah, well, it's tough. Is there anyone else out there? I mean, people mentioned Ron DeSantis. I just need to know more about Ron DeSantis. And I'm always wary because we're 4 years out. So a lot can happen in 4 years. I really want to see a good crop of people run in 2022, and we got to get some people in there. But it seems as though we're not gaining a lot by continuing to have the focus on Trump. And I thought he gave a great speech at CPAC, but this cannot. I don't want. Look, when I'm going to be duking it out with a liberal, like let's say in a book club I belong to where I'm the only person who's not a bleeding heart liberal, I'll duke it out with them, but I don't want the topic to be Trump anymore. I want to talk about, look how bad Biden's messing up. Why did it take him 8 days to come to Texas? By the time he flew to Texas, it was 75 degrees and the snow was gone. Can you imagine if that was George Bush, what would have happened? They would have complained.
There's got to be some balance where we can say, okay, yes, we're still the party of Trump, but he doesn't have to be our president in 4 years. And I think based on everything he says, I think Trump himself is open to just going back to the private sector and staying there. I mean, he's an older guy. I mean, he's got so much money. He's got an amazing life he can live. And I think he could really make a difference in media and social media. He said he wants to build empires there. So I love Trump, but I am very happy seeing him just go make a difference in the private sector. And let somebody come along who, the media isn't going to make us sit, you and me all day long defending Trump's tweets. I mean, my lucky friend, he has made a science out of, every day, when Trump was in office, he'd be just like, well, look what your boy just did, and look what an idiot he sounds like. And I felt like I was just spinning my wheels constantly defending him. And, I'm good at turning him back around on the, defensive. And so I would just spin it around on him. But I mean, not all of us are good at doing that. And we don't want to be on the defensive. That's not how we get ahead in politics. And Trump just has shown he will not rein in his mouth. All 4 years, he wouldn't stop. And there was always something politically incorrect. And you know me, I'm a William F. Buckley Jr. conservative. I believe in civil discourse and being polite. I don't think being crude is good for us. So for me to have to defend Trump's crude statements, that doesn't work very well.
Yeah, I know. It's the situation a lot of us were in. Okay, well, the last couple thoughts, and then I'll let you go. I know you're busy. Where should our efforts be going forward on the conservative side? It seems as though a lot of our effort used to be raising money to give to conservative legal foundations to fight things at the Supreme Court. And I'm just done. I don't care what happens at the Supreme Court. We've had the whole conversation so many times. Forget it. So that's kind of out. We used to put a lot of effort into trying to win elections. I'm still open to that, but I mean, what do we do going forward? It seems like all of the typical types of activism that we engaged in before has proved futile, or it backfired on us, or the doors are closed. Do we just go and write books and I don't know. What should we do?
Well, based on a conversation that you and I had where you said you thought in the future what's going to happen with all this election fraud is the truth will finally come out, like, how a lot of people no longer believe that JFK was only killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. I think that eventually a lot of the election fraud is going to be exposed, and people are going to start making laws. State legislatures will pass laws, and like the one being challenged at the United States right now, Supreme Court. Those are going to be implemented in more and more states, so that will stop ballot harvesting, and that will stop putting in ballots, turning them in a precinct you don't live in. So I think that is where our focus has to be. If we don't fix this election fraud,
Right.
we are never going to be able to do anything. They will control all the high offices, and it is over. And so in my article I wrote about, this argument that Brnovich did at the Supreme Court, I said, this could be the next Roe v. Wade. And nobody realizes that, but it's a total sleeper case. But this is what we have to do. We have to stop the election fraud. And, however you can, make that happen. For me as a journalist, it's writing about it. And so I'm just going to be writing about it like crazy.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, everyone has their own unique strengths. And again,
Yeah.
like I said, this isn't necessarily going to be solved at the Supreme Court. This is probably going to end up being solved in state legislatures and county
Right.
voting agencies. They got to make the laws to stop the ballot fraud.
Right. Well, I think there's a good chance it'll happen for the very simple reason that people are really mad, and the Democrats are going to alienate so many people in the next couple of years. I mean, think of the unpopular stuff that they've done. The Equality Act. Why would anybody put that? It's like every bad, moldy Christmas turkey and Thanksgiving turkey and like old moldy Halloween candy, every kind of like bad food thrown into this big bag, and it's like left out to rot. That's what the Equality Act is. It bans conversion therapy. It repeals the Religious Freedom Rights Act. It makes it so that abortion is a sacred right all the way up to the end of birth. It eliminates women's sports. It basically is going to eliminate women's and men's restrooms. It makes it so that cancel culture now has the full weight of the government in every single. It mandates gay curriculum in schools. It's every possible thing, and then it deals with adoption agencies and stuff. I just think that stuff like that is going to be so unpopular over the stretch of time that I think they're going to wear on people's patience. And I'm hoping that with that, and if we can rouse up some good people on the conservative side, then maybe if you could strip away all the election fraud, then maybe we might have a chance.
Exactly. That's how you defeat things like that. We overcome the election fraud, and we can vote the Democrats out, and they're not going to get their crazy agenda passed. And you've already seen how they're like already fighting, and they haven't been able to get a lot done yet. I mean, I just wrote an article about how they're canceling their own already. Neera Tanden is probably not going to get to be approved to be in Biden's cabinet because of some pretty innocuous tweets she did. Like I could have seen myself tweeting something like that.
I know. The things that I've tweeted are so much worse than that. And then what about the Andrew Cuomo thing? I look, he killed thousands of elderly in homes. That's what I care about. But America seems to care about the fact that he put his hand on someone's back at a party. I don't know. How serious are the charges? Okay, like, as a woman, as an attorney, how serious are these charges? Or is this just kind of they need something to get rid of him because nothing else is going to stick? What?
You brilliantly put that. The fact that they're going after him for the stuff with women versus killing, hundreds of, maybe thousands of elderly people. Yes, yeah. And I can't hardly say anything addressing the seriousness of the charges by the women because everybody will say that, I'm just promoting rape culture. So,
you're freezing up?
Yeah, you're okay to me. I think, nope, you froze too. I can see myself moving, but you're not moving. Oh no. Oh no. Oh.
Hey there, Rachel. Okay, well, looks like that's
Hey,
the end of the
yeah.
show.
Okay,
Let me see if I can call you. Are you there?
I'm there. Can you hear me? Hello? It looks like it just froze again.
Phone. But have a good night, everyone. We'll see you next week.